When we're young, we have an amazing, positive outlook about how great life is going to be, but somewhere along the line, we forget to dream and end up settling. Join Up Dots features amazing people who refuse to give up and chose to go after their dreams. This is your blueprint for greatness. So here's your host, live from the back of his garden in the UK, David Ralph.
Yes, hello there. Welcome to the daily show that is known as Join Up Dots. Yes, I'm your host, David Ralph. Would you ever expect anyone else? One day I might actually put somebody in as a guest host. That would freak you out and you think you've gone to the wrong place. But no, it's going to be me. And today I have got a chap on the show who really is somebody that when he came into sort of my world, I thought, I've got to get him on. I've got to get him on as soon as possible. So I'm going to ask you a question, listeners, all of you out there on your commute to work. Do you have a desire to be rich? Stupid question? Yeah, probably is. Because most of us on the planet have a desire to be rich so we can buy a big house, have lovely holidays and generally have a kick-ass life. But how would you feel if overnight your family went from the opposite way and went from being multi-millionaires to poor? That's a hard thing to get over. Well, our guest has had a life intertwined with the paths of the rich and not so rich right since the early days. And like we see time and time again on Join Up Dots, it's the ability to reflect and start asking the right questions at the right time that can lead to finding the path that is right, the path that our guest was made to live. Whilst being a financial advisor, he was paid a visit by a client whose business was going under. The man had worked hard to achieve financial freedom, and the results of his efforts had left him with nothing. He was distressed, obviously, and didn't know what to do. So what could our guest do to help? How could he help him get back on his feet and, most importantly, make sure that it didn't happen again? Well, instead of thinking of just helping that single individual, our guest planned to help the world and set off on an odyssey to spend the next 5 years of his life studying the lives of both rich people and poor people. He managed to segment out what he calls rich habits against those of poverty habits, meaning the tendencies of those who fit in each group. As he explains, everyone has some rich habits and some poverty habits, and the key is to get more than 50% to be rich, he says. And now with his second book, Rich Kids, How to Raise Our Children to be Happy and Successful in Life, just released, he's once again showing us the way to prosperity. Well, let's waste no more time as we bring onto the show, not to simply join up the dots of his life, but also to find out more about that 50%. I need to know about that. The one and only Mr. Tom Corley. How are you, Tom?
I'm doing great, David. It's great to talk to you from here in the United States.
Where are you in the United States? I was doing a bit of stalking, and I kind of think you're in the Rhode Island area. Is that right?
Actually, I did live in Rhode Island for 2 years, but I'm here in New Jersey with my family. I run my businesses in Central Jersey. We kind of live on the border of South Jersey, which is famously known as the Jersey Shore.
Are you not supposed to be saying Joyzy? Joyzy. Is that not how you're supposed to say it?
I've gone to great lengths to try and correct my linguistics.
I think that's the way I want to do it. I want you to speak like a kind of gangster. That's what I think when I hear the words New Jersey. So what is life like in New Jersey? Is it a sort of an industrial area? I know it quite well, but for our listeners who don't know the words New Jersey, what's it actually like living there?
Well, unfortunately, a lot of people who fly into Newark Airport, they see the industrial part of New Jersey, David, but the real beauty of New Jersey is the Jersey Shore. It's just an amazing place. You have 3 months of just beautiful beaches and a lot of people, a lot of fun, boardwalks. It's just a lot of great things going on in the Jersey Shore, and that Jersey Shore became popular from the TV show here in the United States, but it really is a beautiful place to live.
So on your day, are you somebody that embraces the outdoors, or are you somebody, because as I was talking about in the introduction, you are obviously a writer and you're a financial advisor, so a lot of the time I imagine you're sitting looking at a computer, but are you somebody that likes the outdoors, and does the sort of New Jersey area give that to you?
Oh, I love being outdoors. It's been a fantasy of mine to actually have a life where I could spend half of my day outside. But unfortunately, if you want to make a living doing what I'm doing, you're stuck behind a desk a lot of the time staring at a computer. And
is that a big drawback to you? If you had that dream life, could you get that? Is it tangible, or are you choosing not to?
No, there's no question. I've realized in this journey that I've been on, that if you pursue a big goal or a major purpose in life, it will completely transform your life. When I'm doing my writing and my preparing for my speaking engagements and my media appearances, it does not feel like work to me. I don't even recognize that I'm sitting behind a desk staring at a computer.
So when did this realization, this is kind of nuts and bolts of the show really, we've cut to the chase on this, the realization that by taking control and really working on something, maybe not hitting a home run every time, but at least getting a few singles, there's a little bit of American reference for you, you might actually be making progress towards a bigger goal?
Yeah, that is such a great question. I've been asking myself the same question. When did I realize that my pursuit of what I call my rich habits world, when did I realize that became my main purpose in life? I've been thinking long and hard about that. And I think that realization kind of set in the last, probably the last 16 months. And what drove it, David, or getting me to that point was just the incredible passion I seemed to always have for researching the rich habits and the poverty habits, and for sharing the message. And I think that it was like an epiphany to me that, geez, this is really what I should be doing for the rest of my life, because the passion is just incredible. And I think that's the key. When you find your main purpose in life, there's no doubt, there's no question, you know it. If you're wondering if you found your main purpose in life, you didn't.
And I think for most of us that have found the passion, we are I would like to say we're in the majority, but I don't believe we are. We're in the minority. But we're in a minority that when it happens to us, we basically slap ourselves in the head and go, oh, how could I have been so stupid and not seen what I should have been doing 10, 15 years ago?
Yeah, it's an interesting quandary, because I think about that a lot. And what led me to this point were all of the experiences, all of the self-education, all of the learning, the people that I met. If it wasn't for all of those years of living in my tax world, my CPA, or as you guys would say, chartered accountant world, I wouldn't have been at this place in time. So it's hard to look back and say, boy, I wish I would have done things differently, because those things actually led to this point.
That is the classic theme of join up dots. Basically, no experience is wasted. As long as you're making as much effort as you possibly can in those experiences, then you will take something with them into your better life.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. Joining up the dots is a great way. It's a great catchphrase for pursuing success, because pursuing success is about growing. You become a different person when you pursue a big goal, a major purpose, or a life dream. And those joining the dots from where you were to where you are, that metamorphosis that takes place requires that you do certain things, certain activities, that you grow as an individual. So it's actually, your podcast is all about the growth of an individual from an ordinary person to a successful person.
And there's not that much difference, is there? That's the thing that I've learned doing these shows, is sometimes it's luck, sometimes it's effort, sometimes it's perseverance. There's loads of different sort of aspects how people become successful. But when you talk to them, honestly, they're no different from the person who just hasn't made that decision to start working towards something.
Yeah, in fact, what was interesting when I did my research, David, is I tried to make sure that every individual that I researched did not know that they were part of my little research project, because I didn't want their responses to be skewed. And what I found in the wealthy people is that they actually did not know why they were successful in life. The responses to the questions, and I had a broad 20-question list that I asked each of them, it indicated to me that the reason they didn't know what the secret to their success was because the secret to their success were little things, little daily activities, little behaviors, little choices, essentially your daily habits, things that almost go unnoticed. They're in your subconscious. You don't see them. You're kind of on autopilot. So you are doing certain things every single day, the rich habits, and you're moving almost automatically towards success. And if you have too many poverty habits, you're moving automatically, unconsciously towards failure. And you're scratching your head in both cases wondering, how did I get here?
So if you could go back in time, just when you started doing your research, what were the first 2 questions that you asked on that list of 20?
I think the one question that where the light bulb went off in my head that I was onto something big was when I asked both groups, what do you do when you're finished with your regular, ordinary job? What do you do with your time between when you finish that ordinary job and when you go to bed at night? And the wealthy people responded, well, I'm on the board of directors of this company. I help run this nonprofit. I do speaking engagements. I write. I am going to school at night. I teach at night. I network. There were 100 different things that they did with their time during the week between the end of their workday and when they went to bed. When I asked poor people the same question, their response was, well, I work really hard, so when I get home, I'm really tired. I eat, I watch TV for a few hours. I might read a book for recreation, and then I go to bed and I do the same thing all over again. There was a world of difference between the daily habits, in that case, of the wealthy people and the poor people. And that's when I realized, it's what they do. It's their activities, how they spend their time during certain parts of the day that differentiate the wealthy from the poor.
I'm just going to pause it there for a moment, Tom. Have you got an email notification going off in the background? I can hear it a couple of times.
Oh, I'm going to turn off my email. If you can hear it, it's going to be gone. And I have the Skype on Do Not Disturb.
No, that's perfect.
All right, the email's shut off.
Right, okay. I just heard a couple of sounds go off. Right, okay, so we go from here. Okay. Now, it's interesting you say that because I was doing research on you and looking around, and I found an article that was on the Dave Ramsey site, who is a kind of big financial cheese in America. He's not really well known over here at all, where he was interviewing you and he was outlining a few of the differences between the habits of the rich and the poor. And he listed them in front of him, and there was a lot of contention about it, and he actually had to respond because a lot of people thought that they were inaccurate. They are offensive in some of them. But when I looked down it, I kind of went, yes, I'm not wealthy in any shape or form. Hopefully I'm going to get there. But I was looking down a lot of them. I thought, I do that. I hardly watch any telly, for example. And I write down my goals every single day. And I do audiobooks, and I'm always reading and I'm always developing. And I've never got a book, except for when I go on a holiday and I want to sort of lay down and read a John Grisham or something. It's generally always about a self-development kind of thing. And I looked down there and I thought, how could anybody take offence to that list? That is just people saying that the ones that are doing well are the ones that are putting extra effort into themselves more than the opposite view. What do you think about that?
Oh, well, I've written extensively about that, and a CNN came out with a piece criticizing just what you're talking about, the Dave Ramsey posting on his website, and it's really what I've discovered was that there, in America anyway, there's really 2 ideologies battling each other. There's the ideology that says, I'm the victim of my circumstances. I got the short end of the stick. I was born poor. And that's just the way life is. I can't change my circumstances. And so we have to help the poor people. The wealthy people have to help the poor people and stop holding them down. The other ideology is my circumstances are temporary and they're made permanent by my behavior, my choices, and my habits. Basically, that ideology says I can change my circumstances. I just have to change the things that I do on a daily basis. So there's a battle going on, and the wealthy subscribe to the can-do ideology that I can change my circumstances, and unfortunately, a majority of the poor people subscribe to the ideology that they're victims, and they need assistance, and I think that's what really raised the ire of CNN, and they just thought we were punishing the poor people when all we would. The irony to me, David, was I wrote Rich Habits to help the poor people because I was poor myself. And I thought, well, I don't want anyone to be poor. I think I found the Holy Grail, and I'm going to share it. And I wrote Rich Habits at the 6th grade reading level with the hope that poor people and people in the lower middle class would be able to read it and maybe change their lives. So it was ironic to me that the very research and the book that I wrote was to help poor people, and I was getting criticized for it.
Well, that's classic about humans anyway, isn't it? The thing that I have been told by so many people who are on the show afterwards, when we stop recording, they kind of praise the content and what I'm delivering. And they say to me, have you had criticism yet? And I used to say, no. Well, why would I have criticism? You know, I'm just trying to do something good and I'm trying to do something motivational. And they went, you're going to get criticism. And it started coming to me. And the first couple, I used to think, why? What am I doing? What am I doing? And then I started to think, well, all I'm doing is I'm putting my head above the parapet, and so somebody's going to shoot at me. And it was that kind of sort of mindset. It is just, all we're talking about here, Tom, really is a mindset. It's a can do or a can't. Will do or a won't. Will try or won't. Simple as that, isn't it?
It is. And I think what's happening is when people see people, other individuals trying to pursue success in life, and they're not, that's those people, when they see that you're getting close to success, that's when all the criticism starts to come out. And, you know, they're really, what they're doing is they're trying to reinforce their own limiting beliefs. The successful person, the person that's striving for success, they've eliminated those limiting beliefs. The people that are criticizing those who are trying to achieve something in life, they still are holding on for dear life to those limiting beliefs. And I think they get a little upset internally, and then they externally use criticism against the successful people as a way of reinforcing what they believe, which is, you know, you're trying to be successful, David. What are you trying that for? You can't be successful. It's impossible. You're wasting your time. You're going to fail. That's just their own limiting beliefs coming out.
So you were poor for a while. Obviously, you were poor as a child due to a situation that occurred with your mum and dad's finances. But going into sort of adulthood, did you have limiting beliefs at that time that was holding you, not back, but just keeping you into a very different situation than you are in now?
Yeah, my perception of rich people was that they were bad, they were evil, money was evil. That they steal money from other people, that they're just plain lucky, that they're born into rich circumstances. I had all of these limiting beliefs, even though I was in the finance world. When I did my research, it was an eye-opener to me, and I finished that research, I think, when I was around 46, 47. What it did is it shattered all of my limiting beliefs.
So where did these beliefs come from, Tom? Sorry to jump in, but it's a key point. Where did you have these self-limiting beliefs that things were bad?
David, when you struggle financially, when you're poor, there's a tendency to, it's jealousy of the people that are successful and rich. So you try and rationalize your very existence by saying, the reason that you're poor has nothing to do with you being lazy or making bad choices or bad behavior. It's just life. You got screwed in life, and the successful people didn't. What I found out is that all of those things that I grew up with, where my mother used to say it's harder for a wealthy person to go to heaven than, there was a biblical phrase. It's basically impossible for a wealthy person to go to heaven. I grew up thinking that. And then I realized, my gosh, after this research, these wealthy people are the ones that are funding most of these nonprofits. They're devoting time by running these nonprofits. They're helping their employees, lending them money, giving them money. They're helping better their lives. So most of these successful people in my study were not the evil people that I grew up with. And my parents, mainly, my mom and my dad, just from hearing them talk as a child, it was just a completely different way of looking at wealthy people when I was done with my research. They were not the bad people I was led to believe.
So were you sort of sitting there, jotting it all down and then thinking, oh, that's funny, yeah, he does that. Oh yeah, he does that. Oh my God, there's a thread here. Was it as simple as that, or was it just a dawning realization over a period of time?
Yeah, it was an epiphany because you know what, you have to understand, I'm gathering this information over a 5-year period. Then I'm taking all of this information, which is in 3 filing cabinets. I'm putting it onto a couple of Excel worksheets, and then I summarize it all and I analyze it. And when I was done analyzing it, the 2 different groups, the different categories of their activities, I was hit over the head with the realization that it's your daily habits. That's the holy grail. It's what you do every single day, the little things, the little incremental things you do every day. Do you make phone calls to your contacts regularly to wish them a happy birthday or a life event call? Are you networking on a monthly basis or a weekly basis? Are you doing 30 minutes a day of self-improvement, self-help reading? It's the little things that you do every single day. And that hit me over the head. Then I started doing training sessions. I call them learning sessions. And a couple of the people in my group, a couple of the classes, they had real success with the rich habits. One guy made $150,000 in 6 months. He achieved a goal that he was pursuing in 6 months that he had been pursuing for 5 years. I made $60,000 in 3 hours. And I realized, Mike, I have to write a book about this. I've got to get this information out there. I've got to get this message out there. I stumbled onto something big. And so I'm not going to stop sharing this information until the day I die.
You've said a couple of times it's the Holy Grail. Now, the Holy Grail is almost sort of a mythical thing. So are there a lot of skeptics when they see this book? Do they kind of... And I'll be honest, I haven't read it, but I'm now intrigued enough. I'm going to buy it and I will read it and I will tell you what I think. Because just in the summaries that I've seen, I think to myself, this is not a self-help kind of find your passion, find your thing, it's all down to me. This seems to be a guide of basically look closely at what you're doing and the incremental gains will take care of themselves.
Yeah, the most important thing in its rich habit number 1 is self-assessment. You have to be aware, first of all, of your habits. And I think most people aren't, because habits are an unconscious activity. You just do them. And that's the reason they're an unconscious activity. It's the way the brain works. The brain, there's a part of the brain called the basal ganglia that locks in your habits. And the brain does that because habits are more efficient. The brain uses up 20% of the glucose in the body, which is the body's fuel. So the brain has to become efficient, and habits are the efficiency mechanism for the brain. So we are unconsciously doing these things, and you have to stop yourself and bring your conscious, your cerebral cortex in control to become aware of your activities. And then once you start identifying your poverty habits, the habits that are holding you back, that awareness allows you then to change your habits. But you have to become self-aware, and most people aren't.
So of the 50% figure that we were quoted, when you were writing the book, obviously you were mentally auditing yourself. Everyone would do that. Were you heavily on one side or the other, or were you close to the middle? Where were you?
I think up until I had that epiphany that it was your daily habits that make you rich or poor, up until that point, I still believed that wealthy people were just lucky and born into circumstances that gave them an advantage in life. I since did a lot of research, and I found out that at least in America, 87% of the wealthy are first-generation rich. They come from poor households and lower and middle-class households. That's the majority. 87% come from those areas, those demographics. So that really made me, it was a revelation to me that wealthy people were not born into wealthy circumstances. And the other revelation was their parents were predominantly the reason why they were successful or poor. The parents either taught them some of these rich habits, whether they grew up in a poor household or a rich household, they taught them these rich habits, and the kids went on, those habits became habits, those lessons became habits, and the kids went on to become successful. And part of that 87% first generation rich.
87% is an enormous figure, isn't it?
It is, and there are different studies on it. It ranges from 80 to 87%. In the financial planning world, we use 87%, but I have seen studies that where it is actually lower, it's 80%, but that's still a high number, David, for first generation rich. So it's not about inheritance. The bulk of the wealthy, the bell curve, if you know what a bell curve is, that bell curve is predominantly people who were raised in poor or middle class households.
So is it a simple statement that people who want to better themselves are more likely to take the effort to do something about it, or is that very simplistic?
I think the people who want to better themselves are the people that are every day engaging in some type of self-improvement, whether it's reading for self-education like you do and like I do now, or it's exercising aerobically, it's trying to stay healthy, watch what you eat. Those people who are actively trying because they haven't bought into the limiting beliefs that they're not going to be rich. They still believe that it's possible. So those people who are trying to break free of poverty, those are the ones that are probably going to be successful in life because they're going to do the little things that they have to do every single day. They're going to continuously read about what successful people do and educate themselves on the habits and the behaviors and the choices that wealthy people make. So I think you have to have that mindset that you want to be something bigger and not accept the mindset that you're just stuck where you are and that's where you're going to end up.
Well, let's play the first of our sort of motivational speeches that we play on this show. And this is the gentleman that we all like to watch in films, Mr. Jim Carrey. And have a listen to what he says.
My father could have been a great comedian, but he didn't believe that was possible for him. And so he made a conservative choice. Instead, he got a safe job as an accountant. And when I was 12 years old, he was let go from that safe job. And our family had to do whatever we could to survive. I learned many great lessons from my father, not the least of which was that you can fail at what you don't want. So you might as well take a chance on doing what you love.
Now, I don't know the answer of this, Tom, but I would imagine of those 87%, the bulk of them are doing stuff that they love.
Yes, and you have to. That's a great. I've listened to that and I've read the transcript to that. I think he was addressing college students.
That's right.
I'll tell you, David, that was so profound to me because what it said to me was that Jim Carrey did receive a major rich habit from his father, and that was that don't do what I did, pursue your passion in life, don't let your limiting beliefs hold you back, and that is a major lesson that he learned, and it is one of the big reasons why he believed he could be successful in life because his father told him he could be.
And is that all we need? Because I spent years and years and years working in the City of London, and I was on a corporate journey that I now look back on, and I think it wasn't me. It just wasn't me, and I have no idea why I was doing it. Because I do these shows on a daily basis, it is like being in therapy, and I hear people talking, and I think, yes, I was like that, or I wasn't like that, and now I'm getting an understanding. And really the path that I was on was a path that was prescribed for me. It was a path that was kind of expected. My parents almost thought that was a good career going up into the City of London, so I kind of played up to that. Now, when it all kind of went a bit pear-shaped, as we say over here, where it went all a bit bad, I threw it up in the air, and I've landed doing this, which is so me, it's untrue. Now, I want to get that out to the audience. I want to get that idea that the passion, the enthusiasm for a task is something that they have to go and get. It's got to be. And if they're sitting there doing a crappy job that they get home and they're exhausted, like you were saying, I've had a hard day, I just want to sit on the sofa and go to sleep, then really it says to me now, after doing this show for so long, that they're on the wrong path. And they should be finding a job instead that they want to get up earlier because they're so enthused to do it. And even if they're not earning money to begin with, as long as they're doing something that they can see that they're on a path to success, then it's worth doing. And I believe now that the only people that aren't going to be successful are the people that don't want it enough.
Yeah, I think that is so important. In fact, in my Rich Kids book, I dedicated an entire chapter on how to find your main purpose in life, because I think one of the keys to, I'm not talking about just financial independence and making a decent amount of money and accumulating a decent amount of wealth. When you find your main purpose in life, two things happen. One is you never feel like you're working. And the second thing that happens is, because you love what you're doing, you try and you do it better. You try and learn more about it. You try and learn everything about it. You become an expert in a short period of time. When you find your passion in life, you can become an expert, not in 7 years, not in 10 years, but in 3 years or 2 years. It's that fast to track. And if you find your main purpose in life, you will not just become wealthy, but you will become uber wealthy, because you can't stop doing the activity. You can't stop pursuing success. And it's not because you're chasing money. It's because you have, defining your main purpose does one important thing. It fuels a passion that we all, as human beings, passion is the thing that builds skyscrapers, builds bridges. It's the thing that enables us to fly. It's just an incredible thing, asset to have, passion. When you find your main purpose in life, that's when you find your passion. You can't wait to have passion. You have to pursue big goals, life dreams, and then the passion follows.
Well, we've discovered something on this show, and the tagline of the show is connecting our pasts to build our future. And that is one of those questions that people struggle with. I struggled with it for years. Find your passion, find your passion. I had no idea what my passion was because I was on the wrong path. And I was tired, and I got home and I went up to bed, and I got up the next morning, I did the same thing again. Now I can see that what I should have been doing, and what so many people who speak to me on a daily basis are doing, they're basically replicating in adult form what they were doing as children that they would do for nothing. So if they loved building stuff as a kid, then they are building businesses and they're building websites. And if they liked networking as a kid, they're doing similar things. And I'm saying to all the people I speak to now, make a list of what you loved doing before you were going to get paid for it. And once you got paid for it, then things go a bit funny, because you go, oh, that's going to pay me more than I was getting, I will just do it. And you don't consider the fact that actually I don't think I'm going to like doing that, or I'm not going to be very good. So go before that. Now, what do you think about that, Tom? Can you see any relevance to that statement to you? If you go back to the real younger self, are there similarities to what you're doing now?
Yeah, when I think back, I remember when I got one of my first trophies in diving. I used to love to swim and dive. And I got one of my first trophies, and they asked me as a 10-year-old to from the members of the diving team selected me to get up and present a trophy to our coach at the awards ceremony. And I got up there and I spoke as a 10-year-old. And my dad, and I prepared the speech, and I got up there, and when I was done, my dad grabbed me afterwards. He said, "That was amazing. You really were good. I mean, you weren't nervous at all, or at least you didn't appear nervous." And I said, "No, Dad, I really liked it. I really dug it. I thought this was the coolest thing in the world." And I think back on that, David, now, because I've spoken to over 2,000 high school, college kids, and business people. I thought back to that 10-year-old Tom Corley, and I said, you knew back when you were 10 years old, you should have been out there speaking, doing something that involved speaking and being out in front of the public and talking to the public. You knew it back when you were 10 years old. But then we went through poverty. And I remember my father said, become an accountant because you'll never starve. And he was right. I'm not starving. My family's not starving. But there's what I missed was the passion, because if in accounting you're sitting behind a desk and you're pushing paper a lot, When I get up in front of people and I talk, I can be up there for a week. I never want to get off the podium. So you have to find your passion in life. And usually it's something that you're doing as a kid. And that's why I devoted a whole chapter to it in the book, because I believe I broke it down to an actual exercise to help your kids find their main purpose in life. And the gist of it is this: you have to engage your kids in different activities so that you can gauge their abilities, their talents. And if you're locking your kid into 2 or 3 activities like they do in the United States with the sports, your kids are never going to find their true abilities. So it's incumbent upon the parents to become success mentors to their kids and help them find their main purpose in life. They have to let their kids explore all sorts of different activities so that they can find out which ones are creating the passion and where the talent and the ability is bubbling up.
And so they would just choose randomly, or do they allow the kids to actually choose and say, yeah, Dad, I really like horse riding, and then you take them to horse riding, and then you try gymnastics and you try all those different things? Is that the way it would work?
Yeah, you basically are there as a mentor parent to help your kids explore different activities like horse riding, like swimming, like volleyball, like writing. And I've done that with my kids. Once I was, I finished this research in probably 2008, and my kids were still younger back then. So I started force feeding them all of the rich habits and all of the incredible information I found. And I had my daughter doing different things. I had my son doing different things. And the intent was I wanted them to try and find those things that they might become passionate about. And my daughter is now passionate about, she just loves writing. My son is passionate about sales. He loves selling. And my other daughter is passionate about real estate. So, they explored all those things, and they found the things that they think that they're passionate about.
So you did an amazing thing there, didn't you? You didn't allow them to follow your path. You really set them up on their own path.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because when my son was a sophomore in college, he called me up and he said, "Hey, Dad, I just got 105 on my accounting exam." That was his first accounting course that he took. And I said, "Yeah?" And he goes, "Well, I'm thinking maybe I should change my major to accounting from finance." And I said, "Bren, you can do whatever you want, but if you do, I won't pay your college tuition." And he got mad at me and he said, "Well, why are you getting so angry about this?" And I said, "Bren, I've learned something about you that maybe you don't know about yourself. And sometimes being good at math can be a curse, and we were both good at math." I said, "But you're a salesman. What you do greatest is leading people and talking to people and building relationships. He's a leader among his group of friends." And I said, "You need to be in a sales role, whatever that is. Maybe you're selling financial products," which, by the way, he's doing today. So he stayed the course, and he graduated with his finance degree, and he's working for a big company now, a major company, and he's in a sales role. And not a week goes by when I don't get an email from him where he's bouncing off of the ceiling because he just closed another 3 or 4 deals. And he can't get enough of it. He can't wait to get into the office. He gets into the office at before 7 in the morning. And I think the point here is parents as success mentors. When you become a success mentor for your kids, you have to become aware. What makes you a success mentor is you become aware of your kids' skills and abilities, and then you guide them in that direction. And in my case, I did not want him to be an accountant because I knew he wasn't going to become as passionate about it as he would about sales. So that's the role I played, and I think I did just what Jim Carrey's father did. I told him, "You can do this. This is what you're good at, and pursue it."
That is a fascinating, inspiring tale, because that goes contra against, I would say, we're up in the sort of 90% path again across the globe. It's not just the United Kingdom, it's just not the United States as well. So many people are so lost between the ages of about 13 and coming out of college. They literally just do the first thing that is expected of them. and they go into an office job. And I remember I was a financial trainer for years and years and years, so I would stand up doing training courses. And the actual training courses, I loved doing them. Get me in front of an audience, that was fantastic. Writing the course, it was like pulling teeth. And I used to think to myself, I just got to get through this so I can get to the bit that I like. Now I look at it and I actually think, why did I actually accept that? Why did I think, right, I've got to get past this rubbish bit to get to the good bit? Why can't I just focus on something that was more in line with the good bit? And that's what you taught your son.
Yeah, I didn't want him to make what I perceived the same mistakes that I made, which is, pursuing a career because it will provide you with a living that will enable you not to starve and not to be poor. You'll be middle class, and that's okay. You'll get your kids through college, and that's okay. But if we're all on this planet once, so we have a responsibility to ourselves to be absolutely the best we can possibly be. And the only way you're going to be the best you can possibly be is if you pursue something that you are passionate about, and push back from the society's desire for you to get a job and provide a living to your family. You have to, at a young age, I think it's really important at a young age, to explore different areas. 6 months at a time is a good timetable. Explore different activities, find out which ones are really are creating the passion. And if an activity, after 6 months you're not passionate about an activity, move on to the next one. If you do that in the first 4 or 5 years of your career, sure, you may not rise up the corporate ladder, but you may find your passion. And then when you find your passion, like I said, it's an accelerated path. It will only take you a few years to realize this is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my life. And you just automatically, like a magnet, you're going after the things that you need, the skills, the knowledge that you need to help you pursue your passion.
Well, you've quite obviously found yours, and you can just hear it coming out of your voice. But I'm interested of the Tom Corley who's just about to start doing Rich Habits. And if I said to you, Tom, look, I've got this idea. It's a great idea, but it's going to take 5 years of your life. Would that have frightened you? Did you realise it was going to take that long to do it? No,
and that's a good point. I never set it as a goal per se. What I wanted to do, I was passionate about finding out why people fail primarily. And what I stumbled upon was that plus why people succeed. So when I started this thing, if someone were to tell me, if I went back in time and I said to myself, hey, Tom, this is what you need to do. And by the way, it's going to take you 5 years of research. And then you're going to spend another 5 years, you're going to write a book. And then you're going to spend another 5 years promoting that book. And it's going to be horrific. You're going to get turned down 30,000 times, but you're going to get 4 big interviews out of it. I would have said to the future Tom, you're out of your mind. Now leave me alone. I've got to get back to work.
So were you turned down 30,000 times? Was it one of those things that you were just battling to get this book to the top? Because it seems a book that would sell itself. And it seems a book that in many ways would be contentious, and the media outlets would be really fighting to get you on their shows, on their radio shows, even if it is just to tear it to pieces in front of you.
I think what I learned about this business, and I'm a self-published author and thankfully a best-selling author, thanks to Dave Ramsey and Yahoo Finance and MSN. But what I would tell you is this, David. It's a business. You have to get media attention. And what you have, in order to get that media attention, you have to reach out to the media. And I'm telling you, between emails, phone calls, and tweets, I was ignored 30,000 times. I calculated that. That was last year. That was 16 months ago. I stopped calculating. I got 4 major interviews out of that. And I'll tell you this: those 30,000 times that I failed, that created 4 successes, put me or forced me into a state of depression that made me really wonder, should I be pursuing this? And this is where 3 words I kept repeating to myself every day kept me at it: focus, persistence, and patience. If you're passionate about something, then just focus, persist, and just be patient. Eventually, things are going to work out. And they have for me. I'm getting more media attention right now. I'm going to be profiled in Success Magazine. A lot of good things are happening to me because I pursued my passion. I overcame all of these incredible obstacles and failures. And the interesting thing about it is it doesn't take that many successes in order for you to be successful. But unfortunately, you have to walk through hell. And as Churchill said, when you're walking through hell, keep on walking until you get the hell out of there. And that I kept saying that to myself when I read it in one of my books. Churchill's my number one hero. And I read that and I wrote it down and I put it everywhere. And I keep thinking about that. You have to, in order to be successful, you have to walk through hell. But at the end, when you're done walking through hell, you're out of hell. And success visits you. It manifests itself. Because life says, okay, we surrender. You have proven to us that you are not going to give up. And we're not going to battle you anymore. We're just going to lay out the red carpet and make it a lot easier for you.
I like the phrase by the comedian Steve Martin, and I've quoted it numerous times. It's very simple, but he says, be so good until they can't ignore you anymore. And so what he's saying in that is, in the early days, when you think you're doing your best work, you actually aren't, but that's your potential time to fine-tune and develop yourself and become so good, as he says, that they can't ignore you. And once they can't ignore you, you're sprinkled with rocket power and away you go. And it's pretty much what you're saying there. All those emails, all those tweets, you obviously weren't sending out the same ones. You were fine-tuning them and you were trying different ways. It was just like practice, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was practice. And what it forced me to do was to hone my message. It forced me to really think about what I was trying to communicate. And it got me better. It helped me grow as an individual and as a communicator. It forced me to do even more research to understand some of the bits and pieces that I was missing that were failing in my communication. So eventually, I started tapping into certain pitches that a handful of the media liked. But that's an evolution, David. I grew as an individual. The person that I was in the beginning of trying to promote my book, Rich Habits, was a completely different person than I am today. I now know far more than I ever knew about wealth and poverty, about achieving success, and about communicating it.
And all those experiences you just grouped up, and it's made you more rounded, more professional, more able to converse, more able to beat those self-limiting thoughts that we have. And I think it's the greatest message that we can send out to everyone. And I mention this a lot because it is a daily show, so I do sort of repeat the same themes. But when you start, your business is going to be rubbish. It's going to be rubbish, but nobody's looking. And so you can make all the mistakes, and it's those little incremental gains where you go, oh, that's working, I'll focus more on that. And then you get a little bit of money and you can get somebody to build a better website or a better book cover. And then you progress. The liberating thing to everything that we do in life is at the beginning, no one's noticing.
Yeah, the thing is, the point I want to make is the journey is really the success. Not the money, the journey, because in that journey, you become a different person because you acquire skills, knowledge, and talents, and you expose talents you never thought you had. And they never go away, David. You could take all the money away after you succeed, and that successful person will be able to make all of that money back because of the person that they became. That person that they became, those intangibles, that journey that created all of these skills and abilities, that never goes away. The money can come and go, and the money is just a byproduct. It's just like icing on the cake. What's more valuable than the money is who you become.
I spoke to a chap last night, and he said he's going to be episode 150, Dan Martell, his name. And he said, if I lose my millions now, he said, I will still have my mind and my connections, and I can get it back.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, because along the journey towards success, what happens is, besides all those skills and abilities that you unearth and the knowledge that you obtain, you develop relationships. And one of the things that I talk about in Rich Habits is the relationships are the currency of the wealthy. They build and forge relationships like their life depended on it. One individual said to me in my study, one of the wealthy individuals, he said, Tom, if I decide that I want to develop a relationship with Tom Corley, I look at you as a little sapling, and I'm planting you in the ground. My goal then, from then on, is to turn you into a redwood. I want our relationship to become so strong that we're almost joined at the hip, and that we help each other. And I thought about that, and I said, my gosh, that's the advantage, one of the real advantages wealthy people have. They have a database of other successful people that they've either mentored or were mentored by, and those people they can rely on. One individual in my study was a top guy in a big international financial company, and he was head of the commodities desk. He lost his job in 2008, the end of 2008, and he called me up and told me. And I said, well, you don't sound too worried. He goes, oh no, I'm going to take a week off, and then I'm going to make a couple of phone calls. I just don't want to start a new job right away. I want to get a breather. He found a job 2 weeks later. He called me up to tell me he found a job, making more money, and the individual who hired him was somebody he mentored for 10 years.
It's fascinating, isn't it? I'm going to play the words of Steve Jobs, because he says it so well, the journey, the bits that we're talking about at the moment. So have a listen to Steve Jobs, and then we'll talk about it afterwards.
Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever, because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart even when it leads you off the well-worn path, and that will make all the difference.
Now, those words are obviously true because so many people say they're true. I believe they're true, and I'm sure that you believe they're true as well. But is it success that breeds the confidence, or is it confidence that breeds the success?
I think it's what breeds success more than anything is your desire to change your life and pursue something. That's. I don't think you need to. I definitely know you don't need to have a college degree. I think you need basically a 6th grade education to become a billionaire. I think that's all it takes, because the self-education that you'll acquire will be far more valuable than any college degree, any master's degree, or any PhD you could possibly get. The education, when you pursue a main purpose in life, when you pursue a big goal, is the real value. And it makes you more than competent. It makes you skilled. So I don't believe you need a formal education at all. You need to read, write, and a little bit of math, and you can become a billionaire. I believe that as much as I believe that we're talking today.
I had a mindset shift during one of the episodes. I was speaking to a gentleman who's a huge millionaire, J.V. Crum III, and he was saying mindset is the key thing. He said there's no difference between earning $10 and 10 million. It's you decide on what amount you want, how am I going to get it, and then you do it. And it was simple as that. Yeah,
I think I look at that as a wish. What I found in my research was that wealthy people have a different definition of goals. Most of us believe a goal is some broad objective, like making $10 million. Wealthy people define a goal as two things. One, something that involves physical activity, and the second thing is something that's 100% achievable. So if you want to make $10 million, what you have, that's a wish. You have to break that down into its component parts. What things do you need to do? What little goals do you need to accomplish in order to move you forward to realizing that wish? I think too many people look at the 10 million and they say, that's my goal. It's not. It's a wish, and wishes don't come true. You have to break down your wish into achievable goals. And when you do that, and you actually break your goals down into daily goals, then there's 100% achievability. Can you do it? If the answer is yes, then it's a goal, and you pursue it. And then you accomplish that goal, and you move on to the next one. And then you have these little goals that start to accumulate, and next thing you know, you're realizing your wish of making $10 million.
Now, Rich Habits, it's been around for a while, but why hasn't there been like a Rich Habits TV series? Because I would have thought that would be a perfect thing to break down into sort of weekly episodes, talking to people that have done stuff, showing them the way that they've achieved it, all that kind of stuff. You'd be the perfect presenter, wouldn't you, Tom?
Oh, it's one of my wishes. It's one of my dreams to be able to communicate to the entire world what I've learned. I would love to do something like that. I think the key, David, is you have to get some type of brand recognition, you almost have to become somewhat of a household name in order to gain the credibility to be able to pull something like that off. And we're working hard to do that. I have a team behind me. Everybody believes in what we're doing, and we'll get there one day. It's going to be, I'm going to realize that wish. I'm going to be able to talk to people in China and India and the UK like I'm doing today. And eventually it's going to evolve into something on an international level like that. But in order to get there, David, I'm still on the journey. I'm still on the path towards success, and I'm going to get there. I have absolutely no doubt, because I know I found my main purpose in life. And when you know you found your main purpose in life, there's nothing that will hold you back.
So just before we send you back on the mic and we send you back in time to have a one-on-one with your younger self, is there any part of that dream, that vision, that scares you?
I'm going through it right now. I'm between two worlds. My CPA, what I call my CPA world, which is the world that I'm in that provides a stable living and provides for my family, and my Rich Habits world, in which the financial rewards are sometimes sporadic. They go up incredibly and then they drop down. So I'm between these two worlds right now, and it scares me, because one world, the one I'm passionate about, is pulling me away from the world of stability. And I hear my father's voice in my head every time I get pulled. Hey, stick with accounting, you'll never starve. So I have to fight off those limiting beliefs, and it scares me. But I'm doing it. I'm pursuing it. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep juggling both worlds, and eventually, and I call it expanding your means. That's one of the paths to wealth. You have to find if you don't like your job, or if you're not passionate about your job, expand your means. Do something that you're passionate about on the side, part-time, and grow your skills. And that's what I've been doing. And eventually it's probably going to evolve into, and probably in the short term, something that I do on a full-time basis. But it does scare me. I'm afraid right now, more fearful than I've ever been in my life.
I'm totally linked with you on that. I'm doing a similar thing. Mine is very online, but every single day I lurch between absolutely loving this and absolutely terrified that it's going to go wrong.
Yeah, that's the fear of failure that's inside all of us. It's part of our limbic system. It's there intentionally. It's a warning that bubbles up from our prehistoric brain. It tells us to watch out, stop, don't move forward. You could possibly hurt yourself, or financially in our case. So what you have to do is override that with your cerebral cortex, your thinking brain. And overcome that limbic brain and fight the fear. And that, thankfully, as human beings, we're the only species on Earth that has the ability to do that.
Well, let's find out if you had the ability when you was a young man, because this is the end of the show, and this is the bit we call the sermon on the mic, when we send you back in time to have a one-on-one with your younger self. And if you could go back in time, what age, Tom, would you choose, and what advice would you give? Well, we're going to find out, because I'm going to play the music now, and when it fades, you're up. This is the sermon on the mic.
Here we go with the best bit of the show, the sermon on the mic, the sermon on the mic.
David, I would go back in time to the age of 25, and I would tell myself to start writing. Learn everything you can about writing. Write every day about self-help, about self-improvement, about success. I would tell myself that writing self-help is my main purpose in life. It's what you should be pursuing. If you start it, you'll find out very quickly that I'm right, because you'll have an incredible passion that won't turn off. I would tell myself that I should focus on financial planning also and help people become financially successful in life, because those two things that I do are very much interrelated. And I would hope that my 25-year-old self would listen to my 53-year-old self.
Tom, how can our audience connect with you?
Well, my richhabits.net is the website that I post all of my research articles on. I have all of my books on there. You can buy the books there. You can buy them on Amazon, Google Books, almost anywhere where books are sold. And if you go on the website, there's a couple of ebooks you can download, a lot of reports you can download. You can listen to all of my famous, so-called famous media interviews with Dave Ramsey, Yahoo, CBS, and you'll learn a lot just by going on that website, richhabits.net.
Well, we'll have all the links on the show notes. And Tom, thank you so much for spending time with us today, joining up those dots. And please come back again when you have more dots to join up, because I do believe that by joining up those dots and connecting our pasts is the best way to build our futures. Tom Corley, thank you so much.
Thanks, David. Thanks for having me on. It was a great interview. I appreciate it.
David doesn't want you to become a faded version of the brilliant self you were once to become. So he's put together an amazing guide for you called the 8 Pieces of Advice That Every Successful Entrepreneur Practices, including the 2 that changed his life. Head over to joinupdots.com to download this amazing guide for free, and we'll see you tomorrow on Join Up Dots.
You thought you got rid of me. Now, I'm just going to ask you a favour. Anyone out there who's enjoyed the show and has enjoyed all the shows, could you go over to iTunes and leave a review? The more reviews I get, the better the show will perform, and then it's a win-win. You'll be getting me every single day for the rest of your life. Don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but yeah, iTunes, David Ralph, Join Up Dots, and I love you so much. I'll even come round and walk your dog. Thanks very much. Bye-bye.